We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a public service announcement about the outbreak of E. coli 0157H7, a particular strain of E. coli in the Lower Peninsula area of Michigan. Have you consumed any raw or unpasteurized food products lately? Have you experienced symptoms such as diarrhea, stomach cramping, nausea, or mild fever 3 to 5 days after consumption? If so, you may have hemorrhagic colitis, also known as the hamburger disease.
The CDC actively tracks outbreaks of this pathogen, which hospitalizes approximately 2,000 Americans every year. Karen Neal is an epidemic intelligence officer who works in the Outbreak Response and Prevention branch of the CDC.
Escherichia coli, better known as E. coli, are a group of bacteria. And most strains are actually harmless and live in the intestines and can be beneficial to health. Some strains, though, particularly E. coli 0157, can cause illness.
Because this disease initially presents like any other stomachache, an E. coli 0157 victim could already be in a life or death situation by the time they are properly diagnosed. Rob Tokes has been investigating outbreaks in the CDC for over 25 years.
The first thing that it does is it starts killing the intestinal cells, and then it gets into the bloodstream. It's like running the blood cells through a Cuisinart or something. They get sliced into little bits, and in a few people it targets the brain.
We visited the local Trader Joe's to observe the prevalence of behaviors that could possibly be risk factors, increasing the severity of the outbreak.
Recently, 38 people ages 2 to 82 have fallen victim to this foodborne contaminant between October 15th and November 9th. No fatalities have been reported, and we are working to get the situation under control. Since the exact source has not yet been identified, please take caution when consuming undercooked foods. In order to prevent the prevalence of the disease, make sure to wash your hands, not swallow lake or swimming pool water, and minimize consumption of raw food items. Help us help you. The disease is caused by the ingestion of E. coli 0157H7 organisms. They cause infections in the gastrointestinal tract by secreting a large amount of barotoxin. The possible exposure sources include eating raw or undercooked beef or eating unpasteurized food items. It can also be spread from person to person by fecal communication.
A 2-year-old child died today in Seattle, and the killer, tainted meat from Jack in the Box hamburgers.
E. coli outbreak spreading across the country.
Grocery stores have been clearing their shelves of bagged fresh spinach.
The outbreak has spread to at least 19 states, is being blamed for 1 death and has sickened at least 109 people.
E. coli contamination isn't limited to food. E. coli 0157 has made its way into drinking water, lakes, and swimming pools.
Younger children and elderly are at a higher risk for this disease and contracting it. So, if you're for some reason feeding your 2-year-old or your 82-year-old grandmother some hamburger meat or lettuce, please be careful. If you or anyone that you know have experienced these symptoms, or if you've come into contact with people with these symptoms, don't panic. Simply call the E. coli hotline at 1-800-E. coli now. It's easy to prevent and even easier to combat. If you have experienced these symptoms for more than 10 days, please call as soon as possible. Thank you, and have a great evening.